Welcome to Laughter for All. It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
Oh, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining me today. We are trying to get uh, our TikTok people to join us again after a long awaiting time with them. So let's invite them to the live podcast with Comedian Nazareth. So technology it keeps changing and we are really here. Let's see. We're gonna do this and we're gonna go to live and go live. Okay, and flip the okay and flip this thing around to make it. It's not flipping. This is bad. Okay, okay, okay. No. Okay. This is we're not doing TikTok today. That's okay. Okay, here we go. This is bad, but I've never done this, but it's okay. It's okay. We're gonna have a great. I have a great guest, so that gives me the confidence to do this. Okay, here we go. We're gonna go live. Okay, okay. This is not gonna do this. Okay, so um, you know what? I'm starting this over.
Welcome to Laughter for All. It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
All right, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Laughter for All podcast. This is episode 158, actually, and my name is Nazareth, and we're used to invite comedians, artists, speakers, pastors, you name it. And this week I have a friend. I call him a friend, but we don't I think only once we got together, but when you're on the highway and you see someone on the other side and they're doing great and going fast and everything, and you're looking once in a while, you see what they're doing and you go, this is awesome. This man is wonderful. This is this gentleman I'm going to introduce to you. And he's a funny comedian. He is clean. Carlos has performed on The Tonight Show, ABC's The View, and numerous Comedy Central appearances, but he's making them laugh on land and at sea. He was voted the number one act on the high seas, winning the coveted and inaugural The Princess Cruises Entertainer of the Year award. Wow. To date, he is the only comedian to ever win the award. His fast paced delivery and facial gestures will have you all rolling with the punchlines. And yes, his mother in law stories are true. Don't laugh. We're going to find out. What? All right. So please welcome to the show my friend, Carlos Oscar. Carlos, welcome, man.
Can you see me?
I can see you, but it's cutting off the voice.
Hmm, my
Keep, keep talking.
system.
I think it can be fixed. Just keep talking.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3.
Okay. I can hear you.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you all
Okay.
right, but the sound and the voice, the mouse and the sound is different, but it's fine. As long as we can hear you, we're fine. So my first question is, you were born in New York, right?
Yeah, I was born in New York City, technically in Manhattan, but I grew up in the all around the East Coast here and there, and then I came to Cali. As a tweener, I should say.
Okay. You know what? I think just for the fairness, you're a big guest that I don't take for granted. Is there a way we can switch back to the computer
Yeah,
or do something with
let's,
the sound?
yeah. Let's do that. We'll switch back to
Okay. While you're doing that,
okay.
yeah, I appreciate that. Uh, all right. While you're listening, this weekend I had the pleasure of performing for a a fundraiser for a ministry called GTI Hope, and they help women in India to fight literacy and give them jobs and help them to just become valid members of society. And it's really really good. We had a great time. We did the event in Chino Hills, California, and lots of people came in, and it was a great night. And they raised a lot of money, and they think they're going to be able to help 210 women in India. So it's really, really good. It's really meaningful what they're doing. So it's so good to do that. And I want, if you are a Live with Naz fan, I want you to know my almost brand new Mac, the screen broke for no reason. And from the inside, it's not like I dropped it or something. So as I'm waiting for it to be fixed, I'm using the actual engine of the computer, which is all the information, but I'm also using the an external screen. So that's what happened. So here comes Carlos Oscar. Hello, Carlos.
Oh, I think you're able to hear me better, but I think there's just some weirdness going on with.
No, this is a lot better sound, which is what's important.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. So as you know, Carlos, my question was, you were born in New York, and why are you in California?
Well, I was born in New York City, and then we stayed in New York until I was a tweener, and then we moved out to LA, and then I went into the Air Force. Then when I got out of the Air Force, I moved back to LA instead of New York, even though I'd visit New York all the time, and so much so that my daughters were born and raised in LA, but we visited New York so much that they both fell in love with New York, and they both went to college in New York. So, and one of them is still in New York. One of them came back. One of them stayed in New York.
Well, first of all, thank you for your service. Have you been to Ramstein Air Force Base?
No, but I remember a lot of I treated a lot of the guys. I worked in the medical in the Air Force, and I knew a lot of the guys that were stationed there. And then I was stationed in areas where I had to. I mean, I got to work with a lot of like AFSOC, which are special forces, and I also got to work with a lot of the even the back in the day used to call Blackbird pilots, and they used to do these undercover missions. They used to tell me they used to fly over the Earth's atmosphere, take some pictures, and come back. So
Wow.
I used to get to talk to those guys, and it's funny because they would offer me like, hey, like, let's say someone like when I finished up, I think it was the 561st in the Georgia Air Force Base, and some of the guys say, do you want to take a ride? And I'd be like, no, I'm gonna go to LA this weekend. So instead of like, I could have taken rides in fighter pilots, I just had to go through the compression suit, blah, 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 you don't faint. And I was so busy, like, oh, I want to go hear music or whatever. So stupid. I could have taken more advantage of my Air Force days. But my best friend is still my best friend from the Air Force days. We've been boys since we were teenagers, and he's still my best friend today. We talk every day. I mean, we're closer than brothers for sure.
Wow. But when you came out, you came to UCLA. You went to school at UCLA.
Yeah, I got out, but I was non-degree seeking. So that means that I was taking every acting course you could imagine because I wasn't seeking a degree. I was just taking the classes, and Uncle Sam was paying my school. So what I did is that I was taking all these in hopes to get better, but also to get an agent, right? I'd send my picture on, nothing would happen, nothing would happen, nothing would happen. And I was extremely naive. And I said, you know what? I'll just do stand up and I'll get an agent. I see Whoopi Goldberg, Billy Crystal, Eddie Murphy. I'll do stand up. And I just thought that's the way I'd get an agent. And I went to the Comedy Store. I'd wait my 8 hours for 3 minutes, and I got an agent right away. And I started getting stand up work right away. And I like, no, but I want to be an actor. And I go, no, you're good at stand up. And I started getting all the stand up work, and I get a lot of acting work too. But I was very picky of to like what I wanted to do. So in a sense, maybe I kind of sort of handcuffed my agents and managers because there was a lot of stuff that I just didn't want to do, and I just didn't feel right about doing certain things. And so I got to the point where I was doing so well with stand up, and my daughters were getting older, and I grew up so super poor. I go, man, I want my daughters to go to the greatest schools, have a nice house. So I just stayed doing stand up. Not that I didn't have one foot still in the TV game to get a sitcom. I just didn't like, I couldn't really fully be engaged in getting a career off in television because I was on the road so much, and you kind of have to be around. to get that stuff off the ground.
That's what happened to my acting agency a long time ago when I was in LA doing acting and stuff. And then I would get work as a comedian and I would fly. And then the agent got to a point where he said, well, no, when I call you, I want you in town. So you have
Yeah.
to decide what do you want to do, comedy or acting? And to me, it's always my love is stand up. So I said,
Mhm.
no, of course it was easy. But I sense from what you're saying, like you would, if you had it your way, you would be doing a sitcom or acting or dramatic or comedy?
Sitcom, when I started, let me make it clear to the audience so they understand. When I started stand up, I always wanted to be television was the thing. I was cooped up in in the Bronx and the project. So like TV was my escape. That was my window to the world, you know. So I was I wouldn't even go to movies, and we never went to the movies. So TV was sitcoms were big for me. And so I wanted to be in a sitcom, and I always wanted to be in a sitcom that was very family centric. And so that was my big push to do it. And someone like Freddie Prince, senior now, because everybody is junior as well. So that was my drive to do that. As far as dramatic, I would do a lot of dramatic work in classes that I took, and all my, not to say anything, I'm just telling you what my acting coaches told me. They go, yo, you should just do that. Like that's more your like what? And so I was funny in the acting scenes, but they just thought I had more, I could do range to do dramatic. So, and I did land some pilots where it was a dramatic role that I would be playing. But I think I could see myself in a 1 hour show, like as a character, like on a Law and Order, like as a, you know, reoccurring or, but for stand up, I mean, for sitcom wise, if it wasn't something that was really revolved around my stand up, I probably wouldn't feel comfortable being part of it.
Now, now that your daughters are older and you're financially better,
Yeah.
are you? Would you consider going back more full force onto acting?
Maybe in another, I think once my daughter, honestly, I'm going to give you like such a parent answer. I think
Uh
when
huh.
my daughter finishes her nurse practitioner degree, like I really know she's set, then I would consider doing something like that. But I need to make sure my youngest is really set. She already has her degree. She's just finishing you know, her nurse practitioner degree. So once that's done, then I could really look forward to maybe doing something like that. But I need to make sure that their educations are done.
Right. Now, what? When did you feel you were funny? When did you sense, hey, I'm
I think it's
funny?
a recessive gene. Everybody in my home was funny. My dad was always the center of attention of every party. He could play the guitar, he could sing, tell jokes. So it just kind of grew up around it. And I think it's a recessive gene. I mean, I would say funny things as a kid, and I didn't know they were funny. You would just say things. I mean, it was an old some people, some of your older guests or might know this or viewers. There was a show called Games People Play, and it was like they would dare people to do things for money. And I must have been literally about 5 years old. I'm not even making this up. And I have an older sister, and my older sister asked my father, uh, would you jump out of an airplane? My dad was very phobic about heights. So my sister said, would you jump out of an airplane for $1 million, you know, with a parachute? And then my dad was thinking about it, and I'm 5 years old, and I said, for $1 million, he jumped without the parachute. so, so I knew I always said like weird, funny things, but I grew up around funny people, and I honestly, my daughters are extremely funny. I think it's like throwing a fastball. I'm a big baseball fan. You either can throw a fastball or you can't.
Right. Now, you live in LA. Probably you're in Altadena, which is very close to the Dodger Stadium.
Yeah,
Why are
I'm
you
pretty
a
close.
Yankee fan?
Because I'm from the Bronx, so I'm still a Yankee. So I'm sporting I have a collection of Yankee hats that you would not believe. So that's my thing. You know, some people collect all the hats, like every team. I just collect the Yankees. But yes, I've always been a big Yankees fan. My favorite player as a Yankee was people might know him. His name is Reggie Jackson.
Oh yeah.
He was like my favorite player. Uh, and so I grew up watching him. as a Yankee. Yeah, he was with the A's at first, and he became a Yankee. He became a big star for the Yankees, and I just always followed the Yankees, even through their long drought when they didn't win championships, and then they started winning again. And then they've always been a winning team. Maybe they haven't won as of late. I think their last World Series has been 2009, but they're always in the mix. And I like the fact that the fan base can be a little bit brutal towards our players because we want to win another ring, but that's why I have the Yankee deal, and I go to New York as often as possible. The only time I had a dearth with not going to New York was during the pandemic. Otherwise, I'd be in New York 4 or 5 times a year, easy.
Now, let me ask you this: is your act different in New York that it is in LA, that is it in on a ship?
All I can say is I try to throw a little bit more accent where I'm at. So if I'm in New York, I'll talk a bit more about New York, maybe the life in New York, as like if I'm in LA, wherever I may be, right? But as far as changing my act, as far as like what I'm talking about, or like a real difference, no, I think it's just sort of a little bit of just just decorating things a little bit different to make it more palatable for that audience. Like I have a joke. Let's say I have a joke I do. My last name's Oscar, and I do this joke a lot. People don't know, like, what is that? And I say I'm from a little island full of Puerto Ricans, and then I say Manhattan, right? So obviously that's funny, but if I'm in New York, I say I'm from a little island full of Puerto Ricans, Rikers. Now they'll go bananas because Rikers is right. So and
I've been to
so
Rikers. I've been
yeah,
to
see what I'm
Rikers. I
saying?
know what you're
So
saying.
so that joke like hits. I say it even outside of New York because people are big Law and Order fans. They know Rikers, but that joke hits hard in New York or in the East Coast more so. So yeah, I think we all sort of try to, even when I do a show that's specifically for a church or specifically for like a charity or on a cruise ship or at a club, like if I'm here in Pasadena at the Ice House, I'll do jokes that are a little bit about Pasadena. Like I'll make fun of I know a lot of the police and they have like flowers. Their cars have flowers. Like, yeah, how tough for you? So so that's a very insider, and I know the area. So I'll even talk about like my girls went to school in Pasadena, where they went to school to kind of connect with the audience in some way. So wherever I'm at, I try to do something that connects. I remember I did a big show for Taco Bell, the company, right? It was Taco Bell, Pepsi, whatever. And
Yeah.
I made jokes about the company, and they made a big difference. Even though it was only like 2% of the act, it made the whole act special for them because
Yeah.
it's like the whole thing was for them.
That's smart. That's smart. Now, so you started your career as a comedian in LA,
No,
not
not
in
New
New York.
York. No, not at all. And you know what? I'm gonna say this, just me. This is just me. When I think that, okay, people like to like just chill and hear me for a second. This is gonna be a very valid point. I started in Los Angeles, and the audience in Los Angeles are very jaded because they see like a big star popping into the Laugh Factory, the Comedy Store, the Improv, just big star, right? And so in New York, the city of New York, people on subways are not driving, they're listening, they're reading. It's a stage town, Broadway. They're used to watching an act. So their attention span is better in New York City.
Huh.
So in LA, because we drive, because the audiences want now. So my analogy was New York audiences want to see a knockout. They want to see a knockout. LA audiences want to see such a ferocious pace that stop the fight. So my pacing is so fast, I think, is because of in LA, because I figured that the audiences in LA just fast and furious. I think it's odd because it really doesn't make sense, right? Because it's sort of the opposite. You would think that that in New York you would have that. No, but I think New York audiences listen more. They're cool with paying attention, where LA audiences is sort of drip. So it's sort of a paradox that LA, for an audience, they want to hear it now, and New York audiences, which is the busier city, they're willing to relax and listen. And I think it's because it's a stage town. It's built on stage with Broadway and whatnot, and LA is built on, I don't know. It just seems to have a very the audiences seem to be, uh, I need to hear the joke now. Like they don't have time to listen. So I
You
think
know,
it made me a better comic for me coming out of LA.
that's the first time I hear that, and that's just you are. You know what? I want to say you are right on, but even though I mean I did not do a lot of shows, I probably performed once in New York. I did a
Mhm.
lot in Baltimore and in Philadelphia and others East Coast, but not in New York. And I always had this fear of New York because when I go to New York, I want to be slamming fast, fast, fast. But for you to say that, that's really people want to take their time. That's really interesting.
And
That's a very
I think it's because when you're in New York City, you are used to having alone time on a subway where you're sitting down reading a book, or nowadays obviously on your phone, but you can be, you're engaging or you're reading or whatnot. And LA audiences, they're on a freeway, they're listening to radio, they're flipping stations, blah blah blah. And I'm doing something that's a little bit yesteryear, but it's still the culture of the city. So the culture of LA is like, oh, I'm in traffic. Oh, they can't wait to get there. Whereas in New York, hey, you're on the subway, it's fixed. You're not going to make the train go faster, so you just sort of are are at ease with waiting it out. But then again, but I understand people in New York are quick, but when it comes to paying attention, I think they pay attention better.
right. That's very. Now, were you were you always clean, and why?
No, I wasn't clean when I started out. I wasn't, only because I was trying to be like everybody else, but I never felt comfortable. But it was only like a year and a half in when I said, you know what? I'm going to switch, not just because of my faith, also because I said, you know what? My daughters will never be able to see my act. And I
Hmm.
said, I'm not going to do this. So I was so nervous switching gears and just being 100% clean. And I go, wait a minute. Everybody, like, I just felt better for me. I felt like I had to get to I had to say that joke in a way, or that story where it's the joke that's really the punchline, or the punchlines of the punchlines, not, we know a lot of comics over the years whose punchline is a curse word, blah, 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 curse word, blah, 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 curse word. And then they get this audience, like the audience didn't really laugh at a joke. They kind of just got a knee jerk reaction. So I was like, I can't believe how much more laughs one gets when you go clean. You just, for me, I think you just start parsing out. You become a little bit more of a wordsmith, and I just think it works better. I'm not a guy that sits down and, I go more on rhythm of an audience, and I see what works and what, and I'll remember. Like, I don't tape my sets. I don't like that. I don't tape them. I don't watch them because I think then we sound too rehearsed, because you can say the same line a million ways. You can say hello a million ways. You can say hello, hello, hi. So there's a million ways of saying one word. So there's a
Hmm.
million ways of delivering that one joke. And sometimes that audience, you just feel it. There's a rhythm. It's like dancing. Dancing with that audience, there's a little rhythm different than that audience. And I think if you tape yourself, you're always going to do it the same.
Right, right. So now, talking about words and being, what do you call it, frugal with the right, cutting the word. How's your writing? What is your writing routine like?
I if I'm writing like somebody like punching up a script or something, I'm much more detailed in that. But when it comes to jokes, it's just something that happens or an idea pops, and I write down the idea, and then I'll do the joke on stage, and then that joke becomes a story eventually. One little joke becomes a story. I was on a plane. I'll give you an example. I'm on a plane and we're literally delayed. We're literally delayed. And I go, man, I'm not going to make it to my next gig. So I said to myself, there in the seat, I said to myself, what if the flight attendant says this? And it became a joke. And the joke was that I'm delayed. And the flight attendant says, we're just looking for the pilot. He's appears to, why would you load the plane without a pilot? And then she comes back, oh, just thank you for bearing us. And then the joke that I thought of while I was sitting there that made into the story was that she started crying. She goes, you know what? We're looking for him. we don't know who he's at. He might be at the hospital. I'm like, why is she's telling us what's this? We're delayed to he's dead. He goes, I've been working here for years, and he's like my brother, and he's getting divorced, and he's just drinking and drinking and drinking. Oh, here he is, buckle up. So that, and I thought of like, what if she came on and said he's been drinking, and then that joke became the story. It became a story of the plane, became the story of the pilot, it became a story. I do a whole thing about how I know a lot of people do travel stories, but I'm just saying that story, that little joke became like a story, and that's the way it's. So my writing, I'm kind of random when it comes to just an idea that comes to me. I go, oh, that's funny. That would be funny if, and then I'll do it on stage, and then I'll say something else that I didn't even mean to say. I honestly believe the best jokes are written on stage. You didn't even know you were going to say that, and it just happened, and then you remember. It's like, oh wow, that's funny. So if I talk about my dad, I'll talk about my dad, and then something he did, and all of a sudden it became. I used to do a joke about my dad. Okay, here's for instance, I used to talk about he'd always get fired from each. My dad would get fired from every job. So I was on stage, and I would do like he'd come home with that. I go, but don't, and I tell you, I don't feel bad. He'd always get another job. I go, and then it just became a joke. I just said it on stage. I said, in fact, my dad was my dad was the king of unemployment. If you go to any unemployment office in the 70s in the Bronx, you see a picture of my dad unemployed for the month, and it just became. So stuff just happens. So I wish I could give you a really concrete, because some guys are very disciplined. They sit down, they think of ideas, they think of pop culture, and I wish I was that disciplined. Where I am disciplined is that I'm very professional. I show up on time. I don't cause anybody any problems. So I'm like a soldier. I learned that from the military. Get in, do your job, get out. Bam, that's it.
That's funny you said that because uh, when I first started comedy, and the first, I think, 15, 20 years, I would edit on stage. I would come up with the idea and then we'll edit on stage. But then I started having a comedy writer, a comedy partner, not writer. I write my joke, he writes his joke, and we meet once a month in Pasadena.
Oh
And we
wow! in my
yeah, at the
hood.
Cheesecake Factory in Pasadena, every last Thursday of the month. And we go there, and he tries his material, and I go, yeah, fix it, a little bit, and then I started writing the whole bit before I even go on stage, and then cut out what doesn't work. But so yeah, I was listening. I listened to Kevin Hart and all the people he interviews. A lot of the comedians are doing it the same way we used to do it, and you still do it. Is you take an idea and you edit on stage, which is really a good idea. But I don't know why I'm coming with a bit, and now I feel nervous because I have to remember every line in the bit, and then try it, and then go, oh, I forgot to add this line. I forgot to do.
Yeah, I know you will understand this, and the audience, I hope they understand where I'm coming from. We
Yeah,
comedians, the worst thing is when we have a great set. Oh, the person had a great set, and we say to ourselves, I forgot to do this joke. And like we had a great set, and all we think about is the one joke we forgot. We just forgot. We forgot a tagline, and so we're very nitpicky when it comes to that. And I think audiences, I think that's a little insider glimpse into the comedian's mind, which Johnny Carson called the mind of the offbeat mind, which is really true. I mean, we're just different. I don't know how to really define it. I think it's people like they just see like people that can see like painters or musicians, they can hear the notes in their head. So I guess in a sense, comedies like that, we just can see what would work or not. Sometimes it's not even a punchline. It's just so weird. It's so random of a thing to say that people laugh, right? It's like, oh, that's odd. And people
yeah.
laugh just because and I don't know why. I'll just say something. I'll just say it. And it's like, oh, that worked. It was not even mean to say it. And it worked.
W- What is the biggest complaint of your wife about your career?
I think she thinks I think that she thinks that I would stress over maybe there's several factors. I'll go with you on this. She doesn't like that I would always want to do a certain amount of time not on stage, like not like the bullies who want to do headline. Like I didn't want to. I always wanted to do my best to the point where she thought I overthought things. That I'm stressing myself out for nothing. Like you're a professional, don't worry. Like I always want to make sure I do a good job. And she would stress that I stress over that. As far as my traveling and whatnot, I think it's every marriage is to go through that of a comedian. I'm saying we're just not going to be around a lot. Not if we're taking care of the bills. We're going to be, but I always made sure I wasn't around. I would only go 26 to 30 weeks a year. I wouldn't do more than that ever.
Now, when
Ever.
you're on a cruise,
So just to make sure, so her biggest complaint to me was that I always overthink things that I want the show to be so good that like don't worry about the lighting being so bad. Don't worry that the seat isn't the one you wanted. Don't worry all about it. Just do your show. And I would think like I want to give the best show possible to the point that she thought I would stress out over that. So she thought I was somewhat of a perfectionist, which I'm really not, but that's what she says.
you know, we have so much in common. I'm like you. I want to make sure everything is so perfect. I go early to the show, and if this is like, no, 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 the lights are wrong. You have it,
Mhm.
and they're like, no, it's fine. I go, no, it's not fine. I want to, give me the best environment so I can give you the best show.
I
And
always
that's
tell people if you go see a movie, you need to be able to hear and see. And if those things are compromised, we're not going to have the best show. And sometimes I'll go to a show. I did a show the other night. Nice guy. It was a good spot. Like the people were great. A drop in by the beach in Playa del Rey, and they didn't really have good lighting for the comedians, and they didn't have really a great. They have like a muddy microphone.
uh,
We all had fun, but honestly, everybody got cheated because the audience didn't see the best they could have, and the comic couldn't deliver all the facial gestures or the little nuances of the voice. So everything's compromised. So it's important. Like we did this. I don't know if the audience will like this. We did a tech run early, and everything worked perfect. And when it came time to do the show tonight, things were glitchy. But it is what it is. I have a joke about that.
mhm,
During the pandemic, we had all these shows on Zoom, right? That's why I
right.
have this nice camera and all this stuff. My friend who works at Warner Brothers, Greg Romano, he's the one that hooked me up. Anyway, uh, so we were doing all these shows. So the joke I had is that because of technology, there was glitches. I said I'd be all ready with my green screen and this and that and the good microphone, and then I couldn't get on, and the guy's texting me, "Hey, bro, you're on next on these Zoom shows. I'm trying, man. I can't." People at home don't care. They don't put their mic on. You can't even hear them laugh. Anyway, so right, you can
Yeah.
just see their dog licking their face. Anyway, so I said I couldn't get on. I go, and I go, it's not even my fault. I couldn't do the show. There's glitches. I go, it's not my fault. The next door neighbor had changed the Wi-Fi password. What am I supposed to
That's funny.
do?
Uh, L- Let me ask you this. You won the award for the Princess Cruises Best Performer of the Year, which is really amazing because normally it's an illusionist or a singer or someone that does
Yeah,
like
normally, or even
Chris-
like a band that does a tribute band. They do this really
yeah,
like it's like you're seeing that band on stage, a Beatles tribute band or a Journey tribute band. It's like wow, like they're that person on stage. So yeah, but I think that audience is was gonna pick the winner. So I just just do the best you can. It's like sometimes making a person laugh is big. I mean, it has a lot more impact than a lot of things. So
you're right. So, how many cruises do you do a year, and how long are you gone on each one?
um I'm gonna say I do 26 to 30 weeks a year, but those doesn't mean 7 days per se. Some of them are 3 to 4 days, but most of them are probably gonna be 7, because they want to make sure they have an opportunity. See, the comedian on the cruise lines is valuable because we take less tech than everybody else, right? If you're a singer,
Right.
you need to make sure the band and you need to shoot your charts and all this stuff. A comedian just needs a microphone, and I sit down. I don't even walk around stage. I don't need a slide or anything. So because it's valuable, because they know they can put us in anywhere. Somebody gets sick, or let's say the cast members on the production, somebody gets hurt, they can't do that show. They can just call the comedians. We can still fill the show. So they just want to make sure that there's like at least, that you have so much material that you could do 2 completely different hours. And so, that's how it works. That's why sometimes they want you for the 7 days, even if you don't really need to be there all 7. You're really an important insurance policy
I
for the
see.
shows.
Yeah, that's a good point. I've never done a cruise because in the beginning, I kept saying, no, no, no. Once my kids are older, then I couldn't think, being gone for 7 days in a row,
Yeah, no, it's
unless I was
tough.
on a bus tour or
It's
something. But
it's tough, and I'll tell you what's even tougher. So, and the audience will appreciate this. They have to understand that the very fast Wi-Fi that we all have in our homes was not on the cruise ships till about just a couple years ago. Well, almost like 2.5 years ago. So before that, which is not long history, it was very difficult to call home. You couldn't have your
Mm.
Netflix or whatever, your YouTube. You couldn't have, it was very, so you'd run off the ship and try to download a movie, and hopefully you get a signal to try to call. And even if they had Wi-Fi, it was very, very either expensive, or it was also just didn't work well. So now it's a little bit much better state. So the comedians that are on now, and of those of us that have been doing it for a while, we see a stark difference, and it was a game changer. Having faster internet for those of us who travel on cruise liners, it made a big difference for us. I mean, for everybody, the crew especially, because they're from all around the world.
Wow. Yeah. What is your biggest fear, Carlos?
Um, I think my only biggest fear is never to be professional, you know. Um, I mean, I guess if you would ask me that maybe when I was much younger, it would have been not to have an opportunity to get a show or to get this. I think that would have been very heavy on my heart. Like, I need to get an opportunity, I need to get my turn at bat. But the way that the entertainment business works, it's extremely subjective, and there's really no control. Once you start seeing that, even if you're really good at something, there's so many things that have to just cascade perfectly together, and that's just, it's sort of out of our control. I mean, when I started, even if you had the best sitcom idea in the world, like NBC, let's say, oh, we have Seinfeld, we have Friends, we don't have room. I mean, now there's an infinite amount of space. Now, cut to now, 2023. Yes, but even if you did something great now, who's going to watch it? It's very difficult to grab an audience. I'm not saying it's impossible, but
Right.
that's the biggest hurdle now. I don't know if I'm giving myself an excuse, but I think that not getting that would have been my answer a couple of years ago. I think now is just making sure that I do my best all the time. I don't want to be the guy that doesn't do his best, whatever that is. But it's just that I know I did everything I could as far as a professional. Now, personally, um, we're always hoping to be, as Christians, we're not perfect. We're always striving to be the best we can and not let down our families and whatnot. But sometimes, in trying to do that, we put pressure on ourselves too, though. So I mean, that's just another facet I just threw in there. But I think a lot of, especially entertainers, because um, you know, we live a weirdly weird life, uh,
Right.
and like I went today, I was talking to some people. uh I went to my daughter, like, I had to get her a new car. So I got her a new car, and the guy's like, so you're a comic, are you on this? And I go, no, like, I don't really use social media, right? He's like, well, how do you? I go, well, just people know me from over the years. Like, I'm kind of in a niche, but I'm cool with that. I think there's something, I think there's something nice about having a certain amount of anonymity where, not everybody's in your business. That's why I don't do social media. I mean, not showbiz. I would do a content based on baseball, talking about the Yankees, but not on other subjects. I would just do baseball, and that's it.
That's funny. Now, you mentioned as a Christian, what was your faith journey like? When did you come to Christ?
Well,
Why?
I was little, and I went to Catholic schools as a little boy, and my parents weren't really very Catholic, but they knew it was a safer environment than going to like a public school in the Bronx, right? So I go to Catholic schools, and it's like, oh, and I just got really, I just my they were Christians, my parents. Oh, well, they were Catholics, right? Which is Christians, but they had they also intertwined it. For those of you who don't know, like I'm Puerto Rican, so in Puerto Rico there's an intertwining of something called Santeria, which is like they intertwine like these uh older religions like Africa that they intertwine into Catholicism, and so I heard that stuff as a kid, like all these code words, like they would a certain angel would really be this other deity from Santeria, and so I kind of grew up with that too. It's like as a kid, I would like I'm trying to differentiate why do we have this song, que viva chango, and then on the house like it's salsa music. Then I started getting older. I wasn't even that much older. I was still a kid. I said, wait a minute, that's not Jesus. That's not the Bible. That's like something else. So
Mm.
even as a kid, I was always interested in like what the Bible had to say. And then when I got into the Air Force, I started really reading the Bible. Like, oh, you know what? I need to understand more things. And so eventually, I went to more of a which I am now. It's a non-denominational, like born again Christian, because I just believe in that. Although I still love going to Catholic, especially if I'm in Europe. I love to visit Catholic churches. They're beautiful, and I do a lot of events for Catholic churches because just because we don't agree on every single point. We're Christians, and we believe in Jesus as our Savior. And I'm right there. It's like I don't need to like be bickering on other stuff. Not me.
Mm. I have friends who are born again Catholics, and they're doing an amazing job. And I am a non-denominational Christian, and what do you call it? Do you think your being in the Air Force really impacted you as a
Yeah,
comedian,
yeah. You know why? No, as a person, and then, okay, here's what
as a
happened.
person? Yeah.
I think because when I was, I didn't really have like any as a kid. I didn't see any hope growing up in poor neighborhoods. Blah blah. Like I just didn't see any hope. Like there's no my dad had this thing that's almost like you're born under a lucky star or you're not. And if you hear that enough, you start sort of believing it, but I never really bought into it. I just like he's just not happy with his choices. And so but when I got into the Air Force, I started seeing people from all walks of life. And I go, oh, wait a minute. You can do stuff. You just have to not listen to the negative stuff, not listen to people that'll drag you down. So, and then I had a great first shirt. His name was Joe Nino from East LA. He retired I think he retired as he must have been a master's. I think he was an E9. He went all the way with it. Chief Master Sergeant, I think he retired. But I talk to him every now and then, but he was such a pro, and maybe that's where I get it from to do. He was always like, his uniform was perfect, real smart, real tactful. So Sergeant Joe Nino. So I learned a lot from him, and I think he had an impact of how I do or think about things.
Well, now, what do you call it? If your daughter said, "Dad, I want to become a comedian. I want to do the clubs," what do you would say to her?
I'm fine with it. In fact, my oldest daughter Carly, was doing stand up in New York City, and even did some sets out here in California. And during the pandemic, things started. She was really funny. She does her act totally opposite of mine. She stands up, she walks around. She's extremely bright. She's more on the line like a Jerry Seinfeld, extremely wordsmith, witty, right? Super funny. And I was like, wow, this girl's like. And I didn't want, how some people talk about their kids. And then you're gonna love this. Every comedian listening will love this line. Okay, so pandemic happens. My daughter decides, there's nowhere to do stage time, and so she sort of focuses in. My older daughter Carly, she focuses in on just directing, writing, and producing because she graduated from NYU. She's like the top dog in NYU speaker class of 2018. You'll see my daughter Carly. She does a speech and everything. Anyway, so so she tells me she says this is for real. Listen up. We're in New York City. We're like at a Whole Foods or whatever. And I said, this is after the pandemic, right? Like just thereafter. I said, so are you doing stuff around town? You're gonna love this now. This is worth it. She's putting fruits in the thing. She goes, you know what, Dad? She goes, I decided I don't want to be a stand-up. She goes, for what? So people could recognize me at the supermarket? That was hilarious because it's like, so she has a bigger fish to fry, but I always supported it. Yes, I would have supported it 100%. Even if my youngest daughter said, "Oh, listen, I want to do stamps." All right,
But
because if that's something somebody wants to do, you just, why not?
oh, but aren't you afraid? Because right now, I mean, when we started in the clubs and I used to do the store and all that, as bad as the comedy was, the language wasn't as bad and the content wasn't as horrible as it is now. And I go, do I want my daughter to be in that
Oh, yeah,
atmosphere?
that environment. Yeah, you're right. No, I completely agree with you on that. It would be, it would take a little bit bolder person to like not, sort of hobnob or be part of that or get influenced by that. So I think in an essence, yeah. But if you if you're really not comfortable with that, I think eventually somebody who's you either drive through it and do it, or you just like, I don't want to be around that. So either way, but you're right as far as like now. But here, let me tell you something.
Mhm.
Okay, I know we're in this era of, wow, they say the most craziest things, but we're also in an era where they don't want you to say anything that's offensive. So that's really that's a paradox.
Mhm.
Anything you say is offensive, but yet if you say this, that's not offensive. I don't like, it's really a very weird uh space to be in right now. So everything is anything you might say something that's not really offensive, and oh, people get offended. But if you say something extremely foul, they're cool with that. It doesn't make any sense. We're up is down, that's where we're at. So that's what I'm saying is like, you have hypersensitive audiences, hypersensitive if you think you're saying anything that might be politically incorrect, and they want to laugh, but they're afraid that somebody will see them laugh, like, oh, I don't want to be judged. It's like, but yet somebody else can go up there and just take their pants off, and that's the punchline. So
Yeah.
strange.
Now you do corporates and you do big companies like Taco Bell
Mhm.
and Pepsi. Or
Yeah.
that. How is that lately? This woke movement with that political correctness. How is that changing your act, or are you
No,
getting any?
okay. I would say it. I understand where you're coming from. It has, to an extent. They want to verify even more so before you hit the stage. Like they
Mm,
want to even have a meeting with you. They want to meet like 3 or 4 people that are in charge. Will want to like have a pre-interview with you, just so that they know that you're not going to say something that's going to be extremely offensive or maybe even hint at something. So in that respect, it does. I don't think there's as much corporate happening because it's hard to have these big shows when people are with this cost of the inflation and whatnot. So they're coming back, don't get me wrong, as far as on the nuts and bolts of it. But when it comes to the actual vetting of the comedian, that seems to be a little bit more of a process now. They really want to make sure. Like I'm doing a corporate pretty soon, and they literally want me to have a meeting with them in person. They're going to come to Pasadena, and I'm going to meet with them in person, just so they really. And I understand because they don't want to be put in a situation where somebody says something so off color, or that they're just like, they just don't even know what they're saying is wrong.
right, right. No, no, that's good. Now, how about the cruise ships? Is that less of a stress for you? Not having to worry about what you say, or.
No, I vote. My act has always been, because my act has been clean, and being part of basically, I do a lot of my shows on Princess, and they're they know, they're comfortable with what I do, and they know that I don't say that. So I'm not saying that they censor anybody else, but for me, they like what I do. And I think that some comics, depending on, also the lines are different. You have to remember, if you're doing a cruise ship that's going from LA to Mexico and it's a 3-day and it's like very skews very young, the those who are booking those cruises for the talent, they know that they're going to try to maybe veer maybe a little bit edgier, for lack of a better term. But once you're doing a cruise, let's say that's in the summer in Alaska, you have a lot of families. You have grandparents, parents, and grandchildren in the same audience. So it only makes sense. You're going to need somebody that can cross pollinate all these different members of the audience and get them to laugh. And so yeah, a lot of comics are not comfortable with that. They think their act has to be so squeaky clean, but they're just not used to it because they come into they're in clubs, and sometimes because of this hypersensitivity that we're in, they overanalyze what they're going to say. Oh, should I say this, or should I, let me cut this, let me cut that. So they're on stage editing because they're nervous, not because they just don't want to offend anybody. But because I've done my act clean so long, I don't even think about it.
So they don't tell you that you have to do the second show has to be dirty.
Back in the day, I'm not saying some of the cruise lines, they'll do what they call the adult show, right? And they would say, hey, this one's an adult show. And I said, I'm just doing what I do, so I don't know what to tell you. And I'm just doing the same show. I remember I got asked to do these shows in Las Vegas, and they kept on calling me, and then they said it's specifically very adulty, this particular night in Vegas. And I said, well, I don't do that. He goes, no. And they got to the point, they go, Carlos, yeah, we know. Because I kept on saying, I don't do that. And they go, no, just come out, just do what you do. Don't worry about it. You don't have to be dirty. So, I mean, that's how you have to be. It's like, I'm not going to do it, So they think, I remember doing a set that back in the day for a major cable broadcaster, pay cable, okay, I won't even say them, but and they wanted every comic. So I did my set, I already did it. It was like this Latino slam. It was like a bunch of the up and coming Latino comics at the time. It was like a Def Jam with Latino comics, right? And then after the show, I did my set, bam, everything was all good. The producers, hey Carlos, this HBO, man, you didn't cuss, you didn't do like what I go, what do you mean I didn't? I go, I told you guys when you booked me, you set that up. I said I wasn't gonna cuss, and they thought I was gonna give. I go, no. And he goes, and this is what he said to me. Oh, then we might not be able to air it. I go, then don't air it. I don't care. What is it gonna? Who cares? And so yeah, they aired it, but they actually he gives me, we might not air it. Like for me to do it again the way I go, no. That's what you get. If you don't like it, that's good. It's all good.
Let me ask you this: what if you were not a comedian, Carlos? What do you think you would be doing?
That's a very good question. I've thought about that. I think because I'm very intrigued with medicine. I think something in medicine. I don't know exactly. I don't know about being a full-fledged physician, but I think that something, I did physical therapy in the Air Force. So I think something, I might have stayed something along that route, but I think it would have been more towards sports oriented. I'm very, very silly because if I were to really give you my other choice of a career besides being an entertainer, it's also another stretch, which would be like a broadcaster for baseball. Like
I thought the manager for baseball players,
no,
but
no, not a manager, but I would like to broadcast baseball. That would be, which is also another entertainment stretch. So both of, I gave you like a safe one with the medicine, but honestly, if like, okay, you can press a button and have another career, it would have been that. It would have been broadcasting baseball games and being part of that, because I just love baseball so much.
Interesting. What do you encourage the audience? There's people going to be watching and listening and all that. And what kind of encouragement do you give them? Maybe that helped you, or maybe you believe it will help a lot of people.
I just think that that's a broad question. I think as Christians, I'm going to say this, we got to stop worrying about what the world thinks, and just trust in God. We got to stop worrying. I don't really watch the news that much because it's all the sky is falling. Like, who cares? Like, I hate to be brutal about this point, but isn't like Jesus is going to come back when everything is perfect. So that's the plan anyway. It's all going to fall apart. So what do you want? I mean, so this world as it stands is not meant to last forever. So I don't know what you're thinking, but this is going to end. There will be a new earth and a new heaven. So, uh, and we'll have, this is all going to end anyway. So why don't like every, the world makes it seem like you got to be what they do. You got to be like them. You got to keep up with them. It's like, I don't need to do that. I don't care about that. It's like me with like, with people get on me a little bit because I don't use any social media, but I just find it not like I didn't used to have it, but I found it very intrusive, and I just think it just maybe I'm not disciplined enough to not read other people's things or get caught up in that.
You're right. I'm like you. I don't read them. I'm like, I don't want to read them. uh, what are you working on right now, Carlos?
There is a smaller news streaming network that wants to do like a sitcom with me. That, I mean, it's quite the challenge. So I wrote the episodes, and we'd have to really parse out the time to do that. But I do want to do another special, I think in 24, not in 23. We'll see how that goes. I'm going to do it. I just don't know where I'm going to do it. I don't know if I want to do it at a club. I don't know if I want to get the okay, maybe even do it on a cruise ship, which hasn't been done. So, but that's what, professionally, that's what I'm working on. But really, I just, well, I'll do this. I'm going to tell you this. I'm really going to, because I love baseball so much, I'm going to start like a kind of a Yankee, like YouTube site. I'm going to call it Yankees Talk Off. Because in baseball, walk off means, you ended the game. So it's Yankees Talk Off. So I'm going to start that so I can talk about baseball. I mean, during the baseball season, I don't think I'll do anything in the off season, but that's as far as for me, but that's fun for me. I'm not going to bring up, entertainment or politics or life. It's just baseball.
Wow. What's your perfect gig? What would be the ultimate gig when someone calls you, let's say your agent? You still have an agent, right?
No, I do everything myself.
You do everything yourself, like me.
Other agents call me, but they're not representing me per se.
Right.
Yeah, as we have good relationships, but I'm not tied to them as far as like, it's exclusively.
Same here. But what would be your ideal gig? A cruise ship, a corporate, a church, or a comedy club?
Well, I'd have to say a comedy club because people are going there specifically for what we do. And the nuances of a comedy club, the fact that everyone's there, and I love the fact that there's veteran comics and young comics and different other comics. Just like I said, I'm a big baseball nut. The best baseball teams always have a mix of young players and older players. And I think that when you go see it at a comedy club, having that mix, that lineup with different, I think it's a lot of fun. And, I mean, I was just doing some shows like in Hermosa and Comedy Magic, and like the lineup was so mixed match with ages and this and that. It was really a lot of fun. And maybe, maybe these are some of these comics, I don't vibe with them because they're be younger or blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to the stand-up game, like I talked to this kid who was like 23, and I had a lot of potential. And I was like, wow. And he came up after me at the mindset. He goes, man, I've never seen you. And it was funny. Like, we're totally different age groups, and we totally got on the same page. So I think comedy club, because the audience is specifically there for stand-up. And you know what? Comedy clubs, they get surprised with a comic like me, because like, wait a minute, this guy ain't cuss and do nothing. It's like, he's on point. You can tell he's street. He's, he's not like, and it's weird because I think my family was only my family and my wife, they know like the real hood that I am. No, nobody else. I just have a joke about it. I was real poor. I said legit poor. I was born poor. I went from C-section to Section 8.
That's funny. That's funny. How can people get a hold of you? They go, wow, I love this guy. I'm gonna hire
Well,
him.
I'm gonna. It's carlososcar.com, and I'm redoing the site with my boy this week, so it's more interactive. So I can but I get the emails. So it's carlososcar.com, or you can go to thatpuertoricanguy.com, and it shoots it to me anyway. So that Puerto Rican
carlososcar.com, carlososcar.com. You can get a hold of
or that Puerto Rican, if it's
or
easier
that
for you to
Puerto
remember,
Rican
that Puerto Rican guy,
and
that Puerto
that
Rican
Puerto
guy,
Rican guy will
that Puerto
connect
Rican
you with
guy.
Carlos Oscar.
Yeah, that PuertoRicanGuy.com
.com.
waterfalls into the other site anyway. But I do. I mean, so I'm having some stuff that's coming out. That'll be sprinkling about more bits. As I like I said, I sort of really downshifted on that because during the pandemic and with the hyper polarization, right? Like you're either on this team or you're on that team. So I think I'm like done with that. Like let's just like I don't play that game anymore. It's like we're
Right.
just gonna do
Yeah.
stand up. It's like I'll do a joke that's like I don't think it's offensive. And I'll give you a joke. Let me tell you a joke I do that I
Oh,
don't
go
think is
ahead.
like, and both sides think it's funny. One side thinks more than the other, but I do a joke about because I was in the military and I served in both land. So I talk about that and I said, I go, let me tell you right now. I said, look, I said, I said about our, about our current, commander. I said, I think if my dad, I'm gonna tell you, keep it real, I'm here Bronx real. I think if my dad was alive today, I don't think he would have voted for this guy. But now that he's dead, he did. So it's a funny joke, and only one person came up to me and goes, you know what? That sort of gives credence. Like, oh, it's just a joke. It's just a joke.
Ah,
Only one person. And everybody who hears it, whatever side of the aisle they're on, they think it's a funny joke.
that's funny. That's funny. Carlos, I want to thank you so much for taking the time and to be with me and to show me how beautiful your backyard is. And
Now this is the stand. My back. It's a little. I wish it was a little closer to this, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
yeah, so I want to thank you for your time, and I appreciate. I know that the sound wasn't in sync with that, but I still, we're gonna listen to it, and I know it's gonna encourage a lot of people, and hopefully, there's a lot of comedians who listen to the podcast who can learn a lot from what you say today. So I really, really appreciate you being with us.
All right, thank you so much, and we have to do a powerhouse show here in SoCali soon.
Oh, it would be great. Me and you doing it will be great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank for your audience members, and for
Oh,
those of you who are worded up out there, just keep worded up and stay in Jesus, and don't worry about what anybody says. Like,
amen. Amen. Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Okay, hang in there. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching the show, and I appreciate you hanging in there. And just stay tuned for the live with Naz. It's coming up. I don't know when. Once everything, the system goes back to normal, we will do that next week. My guest will be a Christian publisher, a very big name publisher, Christian Office Publishing. So if you have an idea for a book, or you want to write a book, or I don't know if I should write a book, or I have a book idea, or I have something, you can ask your questions, and we can. Really, he can answer anything you have. So I want to thank you so much for watching. Have a great night, and God bless you guys. Thank you. Good night.